worth winning. Now, last time, only 16% of the membership thought the election was worth having. We've got to at least double that. If we double that turnout, we will win this election, because nobody else is interested in increasing the turnout. And I have made no personal attacks on Roger Bannister in this election, and I won't be doing today. But it is embarrassing that I've been to the toilet twice today since I got here at 10 o'clock, and each room I look in, there's dozens of units and activists in it, and they're not all in this room. And that's where we should all be into today. We should all be in this room. And this is, I'm not kidding you on this, this is an election that can be won. And I don't think the majority of activists in unison on the left thought it could be won. I am more worried that it can be won. I would be a very complacent, happy character if I was making a valiant gesture on somebody's behalf. But the fact of the matter is, there's an election to be won. And the fact of the matter is, people have now started asking, what's the workers' wage? How would you deal with that? How would you deal with this? And they only do that when they smell something. And they've smelled something since the general election. Now, in some respects, those who are also standing in this campaign, who control the timetable, are right to have it. Now, they spotted what were coming, didn't they? Because an election with hustings at the National Delegate Conference in June, with 2,000 delegates going back to their branches having heard the hustings meeting, we could have had a giant hustings meeting, couldn't we, at 5 o'clock one day at the National Delegate Conference. The delegates could have gone back, had the meetings. There's been no meetings. In the 6-week nomination period, I attended 11 nomination meetings for 1,200 branches. And Dave Prentice attended one hustings meeting. That's all he attended. Now, that's for him to defend or talk about. It's nothing to do with me. But what it is about is there's no debate being engaged within the union. And we have to get that debate going. 90% of the members who are going to vote will have voted by a week on Monday. We've got to get in there. People have got to spend the next 7 days. Not to support me, to support the union. Because if I win this election, and the union is exactly the same as it is now, in a year's time, I will resign. There's no point being the General Secretary if we haven't started to change the union. That is the purpose, isn't it? Is to unlock the door to change the union. For all them blocks that we have, for all them delegates who would prefer in June to go to the conference that discusses the motions that have been ruled out of order. That's the conference we'd all like to go to, because then we could have a real debate. And in the 1980s, in the Labour Party, and I've been a member since 1979, there were blood-on-the-floor debates about nationalising the banks. We all went, saw them debates, whether you were in the Labour Party or not, but the Labour Party conference used to be on television at that time. And yet they nationalised the banks last year in 2 seconds with no debate. Why did they do that? Because the bankers run the country. The bankers won the general election. The bankers then met with the 3 parties and said, this is what we need to do, and you've got to form an alliance to do it. And the nature of the cuts are horrific. Even Alistair Darling has said that the cuts in the 1980s will be as nothing compared to the cuts that Labour would have had to make if they won the general election. Now, you can't push that too hard, can you? Because you will frighten everybody to death. It's like a cloud hanging over us all. But the truth of the matter is what Ian says. There's no need for it. We've got to campaign. Not that it's going to really rain hard, but we'll put an umbrella up. But it's not going to rain at all, because it doesn't need to rain. And if people, you know, it's like the issue, you've got to confront people on the issues. Right? So somebody says to me the other day, they say, look, Paul, look, I like your manifestos, I don't remember, I like that, but we've got to stop these Middle Eastern religions. I'm in favour of stopping building mosques. We've got to stop these Middle Eastern religions. So what's an interesting debate is that? This is why I've knocked some of these Middle Eastern religion buildings down. So, well, I think people will get really annoyed if you knock down York Minster or Lincoln Cathedral. I don't think they'd like it. And you've got to have a debate with the debate, isn't it?
Sorry, delete back there.
But it's saying, as we talk about immigration, working people have genuine worries about immigration that everybody fans the flames of. That's what that woman was saying in Rochdale. And you have 2 choices, don't you? You just take the debate head on, or you have no policy. I have no problem with anybody from any other country coming to work here for the trade union rate. That's what we should be doing, organising people. The British Airways dispute is not about an attack on the British Airways workers. It started way back when the unions didn't organise at Ryanair and EasyJet and places like that, and they come at half price. It's the lack of organisation in other areas that's caused the British Airways dispute. And that's what we've got to talk about, organising. Organising immigrant workers, organising young workers. You know, if you start from the premise that some people do, that the first cuts should come for temporary workers and agency workers. That's young people. You're putting young people on the dole. If you start from the debate from it's about natural wastage, what natural wastage is? You're wasting young people. That's what it is. It's not a paper cut. It's you had a job in 1983 when you started, and your sons and daughters haven't got one. And we had a classic example in Kirklees where, to the union's eternal disgrace, a fitter who worked in the fitting shop, a mechanic, stood for the BNP as a unison member, stood for the BNP as a local candidate in the elections, and the union would not discipline him. And I heard the debate in the workshop, I heard the racist debate in the workshop, where he said the main problem that he thought in this country was immigration, because his son couldn't get a council house because immigrants had got one. And the fitter said, the best answer you need, Alan, the reason your son hasn't got a council house is because you bought it. You bought it and your son hasn't got it. And the argument's about, it's always about, it returns to this, the queue. The argument is always about the queue. Because, and I defy you to disagree with me, even though you won't like this next statement, when you're in a queue, you start disliking the person in front of you. You think, why are they here when I want to get to the hole in the wall, or I want to get to the front of you? If you don't do that, you're a nicer person than I am, right? You start getting annoyed. Now, if there's no queue, you're not bothered what anybody's getting. You're not bothered. If everybody can walk up and get a service, you're not bothered. But once somebody says we can't afford it, and there's a queue, people start saying, well, I'm local, or I'm able-bodied, or I'm working, or I'm white, or I'm English. And that causes the problem. And that's why we need to return to the financial situation. Because there should be no queues. How come the Tory government of the 1950s built 100,000 council houses every single year from 1951 to 1964? And Kirklees Council didn't build, under the Labour government, a single council house in 13 years. What's happened? Has bricks started disintegrating? Have roof tiling started falling off? No, somebody's made an economic decision that investment has to go into the rich. And we need to be saying, not just, oh, we'll try and have a dented shield. We need to say, there's a no % pay offer for local government workers, and the richest 1% in this country had a 30% increase in their personal wealth last year. We need to say that 37 chief executives took redundancy of £9.7 million in the last 12 months, and with an average payout of £256,000, at the same time as we agreed a deal on pensions that put the retirement age up from 50 to 55 in local government and terrified thousands and thousands of local government workers. We need to say there's an attack coming on pensions again, and if you leave the same leadership in place, the same thing will happen to the pension scheme. Because the branch secretary has to deal with a 53-year-old who's faced with redundancy, don't they? Or the person who's had the earnings cut and the protections of earnings has gone in the local government pension. Or the fact that people can't retire at 60 in local government now with 25 years service automatically. All them people, you can't sort them grievances out on an individual level because it's not an intellectual debate. It's a class debate about organisation. And so I finished on that point really. They will want the debate to be who's too left, who's unreasonable. What's unreasonable is an economic situation that's not fit for purpose. That's a very trendy expression, isn't it, among rich people, not fit for purpose. And I think we've got to say as socialists, the economic system is not fit for purpose, and we need to organise in the Labour Party and the trade unions to change that system, and we do that by winning this election first. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Paul.